Hello team, welcome to my session on Coffee with Prabh, and today we're going to discuss about how to conduct an audit of enterprise governance. It is easy to conduct security audits, process audit, but it is always a challenge when you're conducting an enterprise governance. It is part of my series of internal audit where we're going to discuss about how to conduct the risk-based audit, how to identify risk in the process. My name is Prabh Nair. For more information, you can refer my LinkedIn profile. If you're new to my channel, do subscribe to my YouTube channel and click on the bell icon to make sure you should not miss my future video. So without wasting a time, let's start with the first part. So before going to audit, a governance or enterprise governance, you should know what is governance, because you can able to audit that area or you can able to audit that subject or object when you know that topic, right? You can able to judge the taste of the food when you know the actual food quality, or when you know what is the sense of food. Same like when you audit anything, you should know what is that first. So first we try to understand what is governance. So governance is basically all about set of operation. If you take an example, when our parents, they basically doing a strong governance on us. How? When we are a kid, we have a fixed timetable. That morning 7 o'clock we need to wake up, have a breakfast, go for the school, come back, have a lunch. We have a fixed time for game and we have a fixed time for homework, and we have to sleep by this time. So this is what is the rules and regulation created by parents. And by this way, they're able to manage us. Same like any government is basically running the operations or running their things in the country. They basically introduce the organization structure, they introduce a department, they introduce a policy and all that. So this is what about the governance. So governance is all about manage things. Governance is all about set of operation. So if you go by the enterprise, thanks to IIA, I got this reference from there. So governance is basically divided into multiple things. So one is called as a corporate governance, the one who run the organization. Your board of director, your senior management is basically part of the corporate governance. Okay. Then we have a business governance. Business governance is all about the set of operation related to the business. And then we have a IT governance, which is all about related to the IT function. So if you take an example, every organization basically have a strategy. Okay. And this strategy is basically built and driven by the corporate governance, which is basically a sum of board of directors or senior management. They are the one who run the show. Based on a strategy, we basically create a tactical plan. And this tactical plan is basically managed by IT governance. And under the IT governance, we have information security governance. By end of the day, the role of IT governance is to create a value or provide the value to the strategic goals of the organization. Okay. So that is why we have IT governance. We also have a key organization assets here, like human assets, physical asset, financial asset, IT assets. And IT asset here we're trying to manage. We focus on the areas, we focus on the structures, we're focusing on the mechanism. So here we're talking about the audit of everything. Okay. My corporate governance, the strategy should be aligned with the business vision, because the strategy that you create, it should be mapped with the vision of an organization. It should be mapped with the mission of the organization. It should be mapped with the legal regulatory requirement of an organization. So we are auditing from this point to the tactical, and then we're talking about the operational level. Okay. So we're talking about that, make sure everything is working as per the organization vision and mission. So that is basically part of the governance. Now, when you're talking about the IT governance, okay, so we have three aspects in the IT governance. One is called as a mechanism, one is called as a organization structures, and we talk about the process area. So mechanism is all about the metrics that we introduce by which we measure the effectiveness of the governance. We adopt the framework by which we build the governance in the organization. Example, like I want a rule, I want an organization department, I want to create a process and documentation. Now every organization has a different way to manage the process documentation, but we took some reference from something, right? Example, like I want to manage my kid. Example, I don't have a kid, I'm just giving example. I want to manage my kid. So might be I will take a lesson from others how they manage the kid. So here I'm taking as a reference. Same like if I'm running any company, okay, what are the things need in the company? I need a ISMS, I need a BCP, I need a quality management. So I will refer some framework by which I will run the IT function, right? So COBIT is a perfect example of that. If you take example of a COBIT is a perfect example of that, which talk about the process and practice. So to manage governance, we need a framework, and to manage governance, we need a policy. Now, when you're talking about the organization structure, we have a CISO, we have a IT steering committee, we have a CIO who run the show. and they basically introduce a process like IT operation, IT infrastructure, information security, and IT portfolio. So from the audit perspective, we audit all this area to make sure they are correlated with each other. Okay, so let me show you one documentation that give you visibility. Just give me a second. So team, this is basically the COBIT framework we have, which is basically used for running the IT operations. Okay, so example, I want to build IT function in the organization. So if you take example here, IT function. So for the IT function, what we need? We need information security. We need service management. We need quality management. We need BCP, business continuity. So I need a information security. I want a service management. I want a quality management. I want a BCP example. Okay. Now for the information security, we have a standard which is called 27001. Okay. 27001. For service management, we have a 20,000. For quality management, we have a 9001. For BCP, we have a 22301. So I can basically adopt all these standards by which I can able to run the IT function, which is called as IT governance in the organization. But maintaining all these standards is a challenge. So what I did, I refer the COBIT as a IT governance framework, which talk about what is a necessary practices required for run the IT function. So here I found the COBIT as a framework. So if I go to the process and practice, I can see the option called security. Let me type security. So here I can see manage security. For manage security, what we need, the process of the managed security is define, operate, monitor system. Okay. And what is the purpose of this process? This. And then we have a statement here is establish the ISMS, define and manage risk treatment plan, monitor and review ISMS. Now here I can basically take a reference of 27001 and see what are the list of control which can meet this requirement. So adopting a framework first is give me the baseline. It give me the benchmark. Okay, by which I can able to run the IT governance. But now if I'm in the industry from last 20 years, I know how IT governance work. So I don't need to use this framework. But I'm basically newbie, or I'm new to the things. So I have to refer some kind of framework to get the visibility what kind of things we need in the IT governance. In that case, I will refer the framework. So whenever you're conducting an audit also, you can have an understanding of these frameworks, because you can use this framework as a benchmark for conducting an audit. That is why here we said IT governance metric framework and policies, which is required for running the IT governance function. And this is basically part of the organization structure. And this is the process area which we are trying to audit. Okay. So question here is, what are the documentations are required for auditing the IT governance or governance? One is called as a IT governance framework. Okay. Approved IT governance framework, or like I use the COBIT one and all that. Second, the company IT policy or information security policy. One thing always remember, policy is a foundation for any governance. Policy is a written statement of the management. Okay, so whenever we conducting an audit, it is very important to follow the top-down approach. Top-down approach. Whatever in the policy, based on the policy procedure we create, and based on the procedure only, we basically creating a implementation functions and all that. Example, like if I want to create a change management system in the organization, I will create a change management policy first. And based on the change management policy, I will create a change management procedure. So when I'm auditing a change management procedure, make sure in the procedure, it should have a policy intent. So that is why information security policy, IT policy is required. Then organization strategic goals and plan. Okay, IT performance report, how the IT is basically working effectively. Then we need to obtain the board and committee meetings minutes of records. Okay, that you can contact from EA and get it done. Do we have any kind of an exception approvals, and how many time it happens? Collect all those documentations. Then your strategic, tactical and operation plan. Then your previous audit report. That is a great learning for you, and it is also save your time, because that give you visibility about what was that and what are the gap they have identified. It is very important to obtain the organization chart also, because it give you the visibility about the reporting structures. Okay, whom to report, and it give me visibility about RACI, responsibility, accountability, consult and inform, to whom we need to approach and all that. And also obtain the sample or job description. They basically announce for every opening. So these are the necessary documentations we can basically collect when you're conducting an audit. But the question here is that what are the steps that you take? How you conduct this audit? Okay, we got this document, but how you conduct the audit? So I'm taking some samples here, which I basically followed when I'm doing an audit of the enterprise or IT governance. Okay, so first audit step what I take is the next slide. See, the first thing I do is examine the overall IT organization structure to ensure it allow for a clear delegation of authority and responsibility for IT operation, as well as proper segregation of function. So sometimes what happen, poorly defined IT organization structure can lead to a confusion which regarding a responsibility, and it also causing the IT support function to be performed inefficiently. Because for example, critical functions may be either neglected or performed redundant. So what happened here is we will review some important areas here. Okay, so when we're talking about review part, we review the IT organization chart, org chart. Okay, so we review the IT chart, IT organization chart, and ensure that they have a clear reporting structure. So I will use that as a document, and based on that, I will interview the managers and all that and see whether people is following as per this process. Okay, we will basically collect the email records which talk about the approvals. Is the approval is happening as per the organization chart? Like example, like for any kind of a backup procedures, we need a backup manager to approve a function. So I will collect the samples of that and check whether this kind of an approval has been taken. So that basically reflect the responsibility documentation. Second important thing, I'm going to review and evaluate the division of responsibility within the IT. Like in some department, there should be a separation of a duty need to be followed. Like in change management, one person will basically approve, one is basically release, one is manage. Is that followed effectively? The procedure documents of the change management, procedure document of the user access management talk about this SOD. So I will basically collect the samples, or I will perform one kind of a transaction there and see whether SOD has been followed. Okay, I will basically obtain the user access management list, and I will check against the access control system that whether according to this access is been enforced there or not. Okay, so this kind of a practice we basically follow to check whether organization structure has been followed in place. Okay, the next audit step that we take is examine the IT strategic planning process to ensure it is aligned with the company goal, and examine the mechanism used by IT organization to track the progress against the strategic plan. So in this plan, they're talking about how you examine. Okay, so before going to discuss this part, let me explain you this thing. See, when we say every organization start with the vision, to work on the vision, we basically create a mission. And to work on the mission, we create a strategic plan. Now here the strategic plan is digital transformation example. So we want a digital transformation. For the digital transformation, what happen is the IT governance prepare the tactical plan. Okay, so in which we will have a automation, we have a BCPDR, we need a information security, because information security part of IT governance. So here I will obtain all these plans to check whether it is aligned with the strategic plan. I will obtain the strategic plan to check whether it is aligned with the vision and mission, because the strategic plan also capture your legal requirement, regulatory requirement, customer requirement. So IT organization must be aware of upcoming business need and changes in the environment, so that it can plan and react accordingly. So it is important that IT priorities align with the business priorities. And too many IT organization lost sight of fact there will only a reason for existence to support the company in meeting the business objective. Instead, these IT organizations focus on becoming a world-class IT shop, even when this goal does not directly support the overall company objective. So it is critical for the IT organization to stay grounded by trying to achieve their objectives. So what we're going to do here? So first thing is that we look for the evidence. Okay, we look for the evidence of the strategic planning process. Okay, within the IT, and understand how the planning is performed. Here, you need to determine how the company's strategies and priorities were used in developing the IT strategy and priorities. We review all the documentations, like their short and long-term IT priorities. Example, for the digital transformation, they want to move the service to the cloud, obtain those strategy documents. Evaluate all the process in place to check whether periodically monitoring has been done. Obtain the KPI, KRI, KGI reports and check is that concerned party has evaluated that. Did they take any kind of an action plan? But how to verify? Ask for the email records. So here we evaluating a processes, which is basically used to validate whether periodically monitoring for progress has been done against those priority and also re-evaluate and update those priorities. Okay. So these kind of things we have. Example, like in every 3 months, they need to have a review meeting to see whether they achieve the goal. So ask for the minutes of record, ask for the calendar records. Is this happened? Ask for the samples of reports. Is it happened? No. Then it is against the things which we discuss. Then map what is agreed in the strategic plan. Okay, whether it is agreed in the tactical plan. So this kind of information that you can basically obtain. Okay. Now next is basically called as a evaluate whether technology and application plan and roadmap exists and assess the long-term technical planning and procedure. So here what happened? You look for the evidence. Okay, you look for the evidence that long-term technical planning is being performed or not. Okay, for purchase application and technology, determine whether IT understand the vendor support roadmap. Okay, whether IT understand the vendor support roadmap for the products. Okay, is any kind of a documentation has been exchanged. Here you can also determine whether processes are in place to monitor for change in relevant technology. Is it change management is integrated with the application and technology? Ask for the samples where you check whether this changes has been recorded through a change management process. Okay, and also need to check if any kind of a change request has been raised where they have raised the concern about the impact. Has anyone worked on the action plan? Is the change has been stopped? Okay, so these kind of things we can able to evaluate. This kind of things can be used to evaluate the technology application plan. The next thing is that examine the IT performance indicator and matrix. See, the things cannot be measured, cannot be verified. Okay, so it's very important. Any kind of a thing you introduce in the organization, it should be involved with the monitoring. So here you can obtain the copy of any matrix being captured for the IT organization routine activities. Here you can determine the goals for those metrics and ensure that appropriate stakeholders have approved those goals. So you can obtain those acknowledgement emails. Here you can also review any SLAs which has been established for supporting the IT key stakeholders also. Okay, that what is the agreed SLA, SLR, service level report. You can check whether service level report is comply with the SLA or not. Okay, we will also look for, the process are in place for measuring the actual performance against the requirement of SLA for correction any deviations. Okay, we have agreed that 99.99% availability was there. Is it able to achieve that? And if not, any kind of a deviation was there because of which we failed to achieve that. Okay, we need a process in place for establishing a budget. Okay, whether we have such kind of a documentation. Okay, then we need to obtain the copy of IT budgets for the current and preceding year, as well as copy of any budget versus actual analysis. And we also need to determine how any significant variance were reported and resolved. Now, next thing is called as a review the standards for governing IT project execution. See, standards should be there by which we can bring the uniformity. So we need to understand what is the way they execute the projects. Do they have a necessary checklist? Okay, do they follow any kind of a checklist to ensure the quality in the project? Because every project that you activate in the tactical level and operational level, it should have a project document. And we also need to check how they're basically procuring the services. Okay, so here the project management, software development, system configuration, quality assurance, every process, every project has a sub process. Like in project management, we have some necessary documentation. In software development, we have a multiple processes like requirement phase, functional requirement phase, development testing. Is that checklist has been followed? Is in every phase there's a necessary documentations are there? Is it followed effectively? Example, like you can obtain the software development. Process document in which they will talk about each and every process. What are the mandatory documentation are required? Audit based on that, because that is an agreed process with the stakeholder they have. So you can obtain the process document which talk about how the project need to be executed. What is a mandatory document? What is an optional document? So first you will audit the mandatory document has been collected or not. Like example, requirement phase we have where we need to understand the requirement. We need to obtain the security requirement. Is security requirement has been captured in that meeting? So through this way, you can see whether checklist has been followed or not. Okay. System configuration, any kind of a modification in system need to go through a change management process. We will obtain the sample of RFC and check whether it has been compliance with the configuration management. So here we look for the evidence that these standards are communicated to relevant IT stakeholders. And also we need to determine how they are basically enforced, like asking for the email records and everything. Next is check that IT security policy are in place and suitable standard for environment security in place. So for this, we will check we obtain the sample of policies. We'll check the last revision history because that is basically help me to track the integrity. We will check whether this policy was signed off. Okay, is it signed off by the senior management? Simple compliance officer HR said yes, policy sign off. No. I want the email evidence which say the acknowledgement of the senior management. We also need to look for the policy coverage. Okay, we verify and validate the stakeholder buy-in also. We verify the processes based on a policy, whether it has been followed or not. Okay, as per the policy is the things that has been monitored or not. So all those activities will be defined there. Examine and evaluate the data security strategy. So in the enterprise governance, it is very important to evaluate the data security strategy because by the data security only we manage the data. So for that, what we have a data classification system. We have a data protection system. We creating a data classification policy. It is not possible for me to go to every data owner and explain them about what kind of a data you need to classify. So I will create a data classification policy. Based on that, I will build the data classification system in which I will define the parameter. That if it's a top secret data, it should be part of a top secret. If it's a financial data, it's a part of a secret. So data owner will refer the system and according to that, he will classify. So here I would like to evaluate the data security strategy of an organization. So here I will first obtain the data classification policy and check whether policy is current or effective or not. It is acknowledged and signed off by the management. We also review all the mandatory checklists like data archiving, documentation, retention practice. Is it data has been destroyed according to the business process requirement? What are the different type of data destruction requirement we have? Okay, if they're saying that, okay, data need to be retained for 7 days, I will obtain the sample of the data. Is it retained for 7 days or not? Example, I will ask the auditee, can you give me the this document? Okay, it's a 5-day-old document. I will ask for the sample. If they're able to provide me that, it means they're following the data retention policy. Okay, I will try to verify if data has been deleted properly or not. Okay, I will obtain the data lifecycle documentation and see whether the data has followed this documentation timestamp or not. Okay, so this kind of things need to be checked by which we can able to validate the data security strategy. Examine and evaluate processes for managing a third-party service, ensuring that their roles and responsibility are clearly defined and monitoring the performance. So here what happened is we're talking about the vendor. So we have to obtain the vendor audit checklist, which is followed by the third-party management team or third-party vendor team and all that. We called as a vendor team and all that, who onboard the vendor and all that. So here we review the process for selection of vendor and we will check whether that selection process follow rigorously or not by asking for the samples of emails and all that. Okay, make sure whatever the contracts we have with the third party, okay, specifically define the roles and responsibility of vendor, include and define SLAs that we have to check. Ensure the contract include the non-disclosure clause, which preventing the vendor from disclosing company information has been followed. Okay. In some project, it is mandated to obtain the ISO certification SOC 2 report. Is that company has followed that? So we will ask some samples here. Like example, we obtain one project and then based on the project, we will set for this project, we have acquired this vendor. Did we collected their SOC 2 report? Did we collected their ISO report and all? If they fail to provide that, it means they against this particular process. So it is a risk and it is basically considered as a medium risk. We also need to review the process for monitoring the performance, what kind of clauses they are using for monitoring. If they're monitoring, are they agreed on this monitoring parameter like KPI and KRI for vendor selection process? So this is basically part of the auditing the third party and all that. Then risk assessment is a driving factor for any organization. Okay, you can see the risk assessment in all the process like change management, configuration management, application development. In every process, we do risk assessment. So we have to check whether enterprise risk management is integrated effectively in all the processes. So we'll pick the sample of change management and see whether risk assessment clause has been defined there or not. Like SIA we called security impact analysis. During a BCP in BIA, did we conduct a risk assessment? During a supplier chain management, did we conduct a risk assessment? So this is how we can able to see the evidences. We look for the evidences, sample of evidences of whether organization has conducted the risk assessment periodically. Because risk assessment is also two type here. One is basically ad hoc and one is basically like 6 months and all that. Example, just 2 months back, we did the risk assessment of the entire process. Now we have added some new objects into that. New server has been added. So we again perform a risk assessment. So this is called as an ad hoc scenario. Okay. So we have to also check whether, reporting has been shared on regular basis. Okay. Reporting need to be valid on a regular basis. Is the action plan has been taken on those risks that we identified? Is the risk has been closed or the finding has been closed on a timeline? So that basically, and is any define the risk appetite, risk tolerance, risk capacity? Okay, our action plan has been taken based on risk appetite and or capacity or tolerance. Are we monitoring the residual risk? So we will obtain the sample reports which basically give the visibility. So this is the first part of the enterprise governance. Do let me know how do you find this video, and do let me know what will be your checklist for the checklist that you will wish to do when you auditing the enterprise governance, IT governance. Okay. This is all from my side, and I'm sure you'll find this video useful. Do check my video of how to conduct internal audit step-by-step process also. And do let me know what is the next video shall I make it on the audit. Thank you for watching this video, and if you're new to my channel, do subscribe to my YouTube channel and click on the bell icon to make sure you should not miss my future video. Thank you. Goodbye.